Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Alrighty, folks, it's that time again. Spoiler season starts tomorrow for Ravnica Remastered. Today, I'm just gonna talk about breaking down what you get in the products, your pull rates, so you, as a consumer, know exactly what you want and get you all the information that you necessarily need. There are going to be 40 borderless cards, 23 of them are going to be rares, 17 are going to be mythics, 30 borderless cards in an anime style. So I guess there's going to be like 70 in total, and then there's going to be 10 borderless shock lands, which in total that's 80 cards that don't have a traditional border. Serialized cards are making a comeback.
Shut up and take my money!
They're going to be retro framed, 64 retro frames in total. You have a 1% chance of pulling a serialized card in a collector booster, so good luck if you're a gambling man. I don't like those odds. If you buy the draft boosters, you have a chance of getting the anime art and retro frames as the rare mythic slot. The collector boosters, there are 15 cards in a collector booster and there are 12 packs in a collector box. You're guaranteed one foil art frame or retro serialized. You're guaranteed one non-foil borderless anime or shock land. You are guaranteed one non-foil retro, one traditional foil rare or mythic. It is possible that you could open up 5 rares in a single pack. That's kind of cool. I think it dilutes the quantities of the rare and should actually influence the prices quite nicely. And the special foiling is the
Double rainbow, you guys.
percentages. I'm starting to realize that this is more confusing than it is helpful. I'm just gonna sum up this kind of stuff. The highest percent chance of getting anything that's kind of cool is the foil retro frames for rare slots at 55%. Everything else has a 10% or less chance. Not the best in numbers. Now, if you care about the non-foils, to get the borderless anime cards, you have a 52% chance. The borderless anime planeswalker mythic rares, that's 5.5% chance. The borderless anime mythic rares, 15% chance. Borderless shock lands at a whopping 27.5% chance. That's pretty good. I like those numbers. If you want to read these numbers for yourself, I'll actually include the link to this document in my description below. I think you'll get more value from breaking stuff down on your own and just, you know, having access to it at a click of a button, because some people want to know exactly what they're going to be getting when they buy these products. And the reason why Wizards has to disclose this information is it's considered gambling by the Gambling Commission in the United States. And rightfully so. You're putting serialized cards in these packs that have less than a 1% chance of you opening. And if you don't already know, the serialized cards, no matter what it is, it's going to fetch you a good price. And then certain numbers influence the pricing of cards too. So like if you get full rows like 111, 222, and so on and so forth, that fetches you a better price. More inappropriate stuff like 69 gets you a good price. 420 gets you a good price. The random police code numbers get you a special price, like the one for public indecency and murder. Pricing of the products. The collector boosters are going for $272. That seems incredibly high, but I guess it's kind of typical when you put serialized products in the sealed stuff because people just go apeshit for it. When you include serialized cards into your products, you gather a wider variety of customers. Who does that appeal to, the serialized stuff? It appeals to the gamblers, like the middlemen who make minimum wage, and the whales who can afford to buy cases of this stuff. So now that we talked about all that, let's get into the cards themselves. And I'm a Commander player now, so I'm just gonna break down what each of these cards do in that format. Cloudstone Curio, it's particularly powerful because there's not a lot of things that bounces permanents to your hand for free. It usually facilitates, I guess, strategies where you're trying to combo and win. If you care about creature ETBs and champion ETBs, Cloudstone Curio is for you. I play this in my Eudora deck, and the way I abuse this is I bounce the lands that are creatures back to my hand so I could, you know, replay them and get more value out of them. I also abuse this in Perforos. I use the kobolds and they're the 0-drop ones because I drop one for nothing, do 2 damage to everybody, I play the other one, and then I bounce the first one back to my hand and do that infinitely until everyone dies.
Wow, you're a dirty girl.
This did get a full art treatment fairly recently in Tales of Middle-earth. I don't really like the representation of Lord of the Rings version, like it doesn't make much sense. Versus the one from Ravnica Remastered, the representation is significantly better. It just sucks and makes me feel like I got burned a little bit because like my mind just like, I prefer borderless cards. Like I like the concept of using every inch of something to be visually appealing. I have a lot of tattoos and I like color. It just appeals to me in kind of the same way. Why Wizards won't like go to this kind of model in their card design for everything is it makes them money. If they made everything borderless, the luster kind of loses its shine and no one gets excited for them. It pisses me off that Wizards released Cloudstone Curio within the same year, a couple of months ago. And I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I want a borderless version. And then, you know, a few months later, we get this version, which is a better representation come out. They got money out of me. That's how I feel about it.
It really, really sucks.
Lately, I've been thinking about that a lot because this isn't the first time this has happened. They do this in Secret Lairs too. It makes me want to start picking and choosing cards more instead of just doing the behavior of just buying it just because it's borderless and cool. Why should I continue to burn myself when the precedence is that the better thing is down the road, not even that far down the road even. I need to be a better consumer, and I'm just being honest. If I don't like a particular art about something, then just not buying, and not just because it's borderless. They're telling me that they're gonna keep reprinting things and keep giving it a borderless treatment, regardless of how many times they've already done it. But that's my only gripe. I'm gonna keep on going. Currently, you get a copy of Cloudstone Curio for like 14 bucks. If you don't already have one of these in your collection, I highly recommend you get it because it's one of the best cards in Magic. Chromatic Lantern is getting a borderless version. It's only a $3 card. I haven't used a Chromatic Lantern in eons, mostly because the mana fixing has gotten so good and so affordable in your land base that I've not required a Chromatic Lantern. I can't like endorse and recommend people buying Chromatic Lanterns when they should just be buying the Czech lands, the MDFC lands, and the Pain lands.
That's what you need.
Like, those are all under $5, and you should be playing those instead. Teysa, Orzhov Siam. She is a combo monster. What she does is you combo this with, I forget what the enchantment's called, but it turns all your creatures into a single color, and that's black. It's a 1-mana enchantment that does this too. And basically, whenever another black creature dies, you make a 1/1 spirit that's white, and it just feeds into that loop. You will never have 0 tokens in play. The token just replaces itself, and that's the machine and the combo. You basically turn Teysa into a one-sided board wipe, and it's a really good one because you're exiling people's creatures. Get a copy for $6. Pre-order prices are always extremely high. This one's saying people are trying to sell it for $45. That's not going to stick.
Desperation.
I expect that to fall significantly to like well below half that amount. Savra, Queen of the Golgari. Whenever you sack a black creature, you pay 2 life. If you do, each other player sacks a creature. Whenever you sack a green creature, you may gain 2 life. The better ability is definitely on the upper half of this card, just because you're basically playing a commander from the command zone that is a Grave Pact. It's pretty darn good. Let's see. Get a copy for $1.70. Same story. I have the Secret Lair version, and same story as what I was discussing earlier. This anime version looks a heck of a lot better than this weird one on the right. Kind of reminds me of really old school paintings, and I'm just not into that. Do you want the new hotness of anime, or do you want the weird realistic face with everything else being in MS Paint? Clearly there's a better dynamic here that I just need to say no to. Ralzeric, the ultimate ability is you flip coins and you get extra turns per coin you call correctly. His +1's not bad. You tap a permanent, then untap another target permanent. It's great in Tim decks where you're tapping and untapping stuff. And it also has a removal ability in his middle. I don't play Ralzeric enough because I just haven't found the right deck for him. Personally, you can get this for 82 cents. It's weird that the price is so low for $10 already, because from what I remember when we discussed the percentages for the Planeswalkers are really low. They're like 10% or less, and it's already this low. It's probably because of the popularity of the card no one's playing Ralzeric, so no one's going to be playing this either. And that's why it's as cheap as it is right now, and it's only going to get lower. Prime Speaker Zagana. She is a monster when it comes to the card advantage game. When it enters, you put X+1/+1 counters on her, where X is the greatest power of creatures you control, and then you draw cards equal to her power. You get one for 34 cents. I don't know what this is going to settle around. Probably also very cheap. Niv-Mizzet Perun. Whenever you draw a card, deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever a player casts it into a sorcery, you draw. So he is a storm monster. You just want to cast really cheap spells, draw a bunch of cards, damage everyone out of the game. He's really hard to build on a budget because triple blue, triple red is not easy. Most of these decks depend on making a lot of treasures to accomplish that. So because of how popular treasure decks are, they're also expensive. Budget players can't really afford to build these. It's kind of nice that he's getting reprinted. At least he'll be affordable for people to try, but not really affordable deck-wise, because the other 99 cards are expensive, and the payoffs are also fairly expensive. I'm pretty excited about it. I'd rather have this in my collection than this with a border. I imagine a lot of folks sort of feel the same way. Karlov the Ghost Council. I'm pretty excited about this full art. I actually play this commander. Used to drive my friends nuts because the way you build Karlov the Ghost Council is you're not trying to gain large swaths of life. You're trying to get as many instances of life as you possibly can. So you fill the deck with things like Soul's Attendant and Soul Warden, and you just rack up the instances that way. The payoff is you get a really big commander that you could deal commander damage with or kill people out that way. And then he's also a control piece by removing those 6 counters and exiling a creature. I have a really basic looking one. Pretty excited to pick that up as well. Domri Raid. This is the original printing of Domri, getting a facelift. For +1, you get to look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature, you get to put it in your hand. -2, you have 2 creatures fight. -7 is you give a ton of keywords to your creatures. Is you give evasion with trample, you give double strike, which means more damage, and then you give haste, which means your creatures are useful the turn you play them. And hexproof makes it so your opponents can't interact with you as easily as they would wish. You get even cheaper one for 90 cents. I think this will take a downturn just like the Ralzeric version, because Ralzeric was getting the same amount of play of like 90 cents worthy price tags. Since that version, the fancy anime version, is getting $10 price tag, I imagine this is also going to get a really low price tag. Life for the Loam, probably going to be more popular in the modern format. Especially when I was playing Modern, I don't know if it still is to this day. Dredge, what it does is it replaces your draw and it makes you mill 3 cards off your own library. When you cast it, you get to return 3 lands from your graveyard to your hand. You play this in Lands Matter decks. If you're able to play multiple lands a turn, you start breaking this a little bit. Like if you play Strip Mine or Wasteland kind of stuff and you control people out of the game by taking away their lands, people play Life from the Loam for those kinds of purposes. Or for the purpose, like I said, in Dredge, they want to fill their graveyard with creatures and cheat them into play and just kill you that way. You can get a copy of this as cheap as $6.50. This is probably only going to be like $1 or $2 more than that in terms of price tag. Guardian Project. Now, this is a popular card in Commander. Whenever non-token creature you control enters the battlefield and doesn't have a name of another creature you control, you get to draw a card. So it doesn't work in things where you copy your own creatures. Like, the classic mistake I see people do is they include this in Volo, and it doesn't work in Volo because what happens is the Volo trigger goes on the stack. The token that you make from Volo enters the battlefield first. Guardian Project doesn't trigger on tokens, and then when the actual copy that you cast resolves and enters the battlefield, there's already the same name in play. So Guardian Project is a mistake to include in those decks. On EDH Rec, it has like a 33 or 43% representation.
Must get that fixed.
Don't make that mistake. Guardian Project does not work in Volo decks, but that's like a special little thing that I know, or interaction. Anyways, you get a copy for 10 bucks. I imagine this will be a little bit more expensive. I think everybody and their mother that plays Commander will want to replace their Reggie copies with this pretty sick full art version. Udvar Hellkite. I only see this exclusively played in dragon decks like Ur Dragon. Whenever a dragon attacks, you get a 6/6 dragon token. If you have got a lot of dragons in play, holy cow, you've pulled off the dream. It's pretty hard to do since dragons are normally really expensive CMC wise, so you'll be playing 1 dragon a turn. You'll be lucky if you could get 2 triggers off this and it sees another revolution on the table, because then the dragon tokens will feed into itself and make more dragons if you're allowed to keep it that long. It's pretty hard to do, but if you do it, good on you. You could get one for as low as 10 bucks. The secret lair version looks awful, so I hate the border on that thing. A welcome addition, I would say. In terms of demand and predicting its price tag, I don't think this is a $40 card. I'd probably at most trade or pay for this at 20, 25, but that's about it. Just because it's a very niche card. Like, you don't just throw this in any deck that has red in it. It has a specific clause to be only in dragons, and I know dragons are a popular theme in Commander. I don't think that's a high enough demand to warrant a $40 price tag. Ilharg. This guy lets you cheat creatures into play, and then it gets bounced back to your hand. He also protects himself, because if he dies, you put it 3rd from the top of your library. You could get one as cheap as $4. I have the Secret Lair drop one, which is like a weird like butcher version where it shows you all the parts of him. And you know me, I like color. There's certainly a heck of a lot more color and action going on this new version. So I'll be probably picking this up to replace this one. And then this Ilharg will fill my binder. I don't know what that'll affect it in terms of price. It's already at $7.40, so they'll probably be worth less by the time this releases, but that's okay. I'm a player first and a collector second. I play with all these cards that I own. Things losing value doesn't bother me that much. I would rather have the community grow stronger by having easier access to cards when they're at an affordable price. If my competition's better, I get better as a player. Even though I, toot my own horn, I am a pretty good Magic player. If you look at any of my other content, I do gameplay videos, I do deck building texts. You can see for yourself if I actually back up those words. I'm always looking to improve myself and help others if they want it from me. Hellkite Tyrant. Deals damage to a player, you steal all their artifacts, and then if you have 20 more artifacts by your upkeep, you win the game. This card would be more complete if it had haste, but it doesn't, so you have to kind of enable that to happen. The reason why this card doesn't see as much play as it used to is it suffers a lot of tempo issues, because you have Summoning Sickness, and then you have to go to upkeep to see the win clause. That's at least 2 turns, and then you're not guaranteed to win. You have to have 20 artifacts. It's not an easy feat to accomplish. I've not seen someone get killed by a Hellkite Tyrant trigger.
Doesn't mean you can't try.
Probably since the beginning of the EDH format, before Wizards started putting out sealed products to support it. That's how long it's been since I've seen a Hellkite Tyrant win a game. You get a copy for $8. This is not worth $40 based on what I just described to you. Arclight Phoenix. This is another modern card. I don't know if Arclight Phoenix still gets played in modern. It played very similarly to Dredge. It's just more of a storm variant. Your focus is to cast spells to mill yourself, and then once you cast 3 spells, you get all your Arclights back, and you just beat people to death with a bunch of 3/2s of flying and haste. You get a copy for $2. This is not a commander card. It's already at $15 starting price, so that tells me the Arclight decks aren't really being played in modern anymore. It might be in Pioneer, but I don't play 60 card formats anymore. I don't know, but based on that starting price tag, I could safely assume they have fallen out of favor. It's already gotten a floor treatment. I've got this one. I like the new one more because there's a lot more color. There's a better story being told. It'll be nice in my trade binder. It's worth $10. Pack Rat. What a funny... Kind of reminds me of the Rick and Morty episode.
You were special to rats. Now they're dead.
Get a copy for $4. This thing was a monster in its heyday in Standard. I don't think it gets play in any 60 card format. You could start discarding cards and making copies of Pack Rat, and they feed off each other, making themselves bigger. The Reggie version for $5. I'm not entirely sure what this will settle at. Due to demand, I imagine it will be slightly higher than the Secret Lair version of 13, just because it looks cool. Cryptcast, pretty much a staple in mono black decks or decks that play Urborg shenanigans. Get a copy for $9 and start I guess, breaking your mana base. It basically turns your swamps into tapping for double, and then it gives you a win condition, because extort, if you don't know what that does, is you could pay a filtered black or white mana, and it causes all your opponents to lose a life, and then you gain that much life. If you have 3 opponents like you normally do in Commander, everyone would lose 1 while you gain 3 per time you cast a spell and pay that additional 1. It's an effective win condition if that's what you're going to be trying to do. Like, I've seen Blind Obedience kill plenty of people. Crypt Gas is slightly better because it gives you excess mana. It just feeds into itself. And that's why it's good, and why it's sitting at $10. It should drive down the prices of these other cards to be more affordable to all of you. So hope you're excited about that. Spark Double, you get a copy for $5. The significance of this clone is it can copy legendary creatures. It gets around the legendary clause. If you didn't know, that is a rule in Magic. You can only have 1 creature of the same name that is legendary and play at a time. And then if you go beyond that, state-based actions will kick in and force you to sacrifice one of them before you could do anything at all. So priority never gets passed, not even to yourself. The only thing priority-wise that's happening is you have to make a decision to sacrifice one or the other, and Spark Double gets around it. Spark Double has yet to get a full art version until now. It looks cool. I want one. Spark Double was already affordable for people building on a budget, so I think this is more appealing to people like me, the middle folks, the ones who aren't the whales, but who aren't playing on a strict budget. Tidestone Tyrant, this is an old school win condition. You get a copy for $4. The key part of this ability is it doesn't specify what kind of permanent you could bounce, meaning you could bounce people's lands. If you could loop casting something over and over again, you just bounce everyone's permanents, make them start from 0 while you're the only one with a board, and you keep people permanently under your thumb until you win the game. You may think casting stuff for free is hard, but it's really not. You get around it with things like Omniscience. There's a lot of ways in Magic to make you cast stuff for free. Cyclonic Rift. This is a staple in blue decks that don't operate on a budget because it's a one-sided board wipe when you pay its overload cost. That's almost not the best part. It's the flexibility part that drives the price of this card, because you could pay 2 mana just to bounce 1 thing. It's useful at every state of the game, and that's why it has such an expensive price demand. It's been getting printed a lot, and its price is falling to $25. I have the Double Masters version, which looks like this. This does not convey Cyclonic Rift to me. This is a literal cyclone ripping buildings and, I guess, goats into the air.
Where's the goat?
Versus the other one just looks like some kind of rift in time-space reality. It doesn't really fit the title of the card that well. I like the representation on this a lot. I'll probably trade off or sell my copy and pick one of these up for myself. I think mine's a foil version too, so someone out there in the world will appreciate my Double Masters one. Divine Visitation. Why this card is so good is it turns your rinky-dink tokens into 4/4 angels with flying. 4/4 angels are a heck of a lot more threatening than 1/1s with 0 evasion. If you don't have a copy, this might be a good time to pick it up. You can get one for $5, the base version. I'm definitely interested in this. Who doesn't like a sexy anime chick with wings? And a full suit of armor? I do. I'm willing to admit that. Lure of the Void, we already saw this in the beginning. You get a copy for $12. If you don't know what it does, when it deals damage to a player, you exile the top 7 of that player's library, and then you get to put a creature from that onto the battlefield under your control. So it lets you steal stuff. I haven't seen a Lure of the Void played in a while. This normally gets played in like the Angels, Demons, Dragons deck.
Oh my!
I forget her name. She's kind of like the boogeyman from 2013, and she still is. I don't see those decks anymore because people hate playing against them and people target you out pretty hard. And in those decks, Lure of the Void is a nice fit. Or in Demon tribal decks. I never see Lure of the Void just like windmill slammed and you're just typical black deck, so I don't think this is going to be too terribly expensive. Somewhere around $20, maybe even less, is what I'd pay for this. Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. You get one for $1, so this kind of feels like a bummer to get a full art treatment, but I have a copy, so I might as well upgrade it to this. I'm not paying $50 for it, that's for sure. Another sexy anime girl with flaming swords. Not one, but two swords. At the beginning of combat, you choose up to one target creature. If it's white, it gets vigilance. If it's red, it gets +2/+0 and trample. And she herself has mentor, meaning when it attacks, put a counter on a target attacking creature of lesser power. Don't see a whole lot of play. No way it's worth 50 bucks. Krakow Mob Boss. He is one of the best goblin commanders to this date. He's also never gotten a full art treatment. You get a copy for 2 bucks. I like this full art version. I'll replace my Reggie one with this as soon as I can. I think the only other goblin commander in mono red that even comes close to competing with this is the Muxus that digs from the top of your library. Outside of that, you start adding additional colors. Doesn't have a price tag, so I imagine this will be a fairly cheap full art for you to pick up if you're interested. Massacre Girl, if you don't know what she does, ETBs, other creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. If a creature should die, you repeat this process. If you have a staggering amount of toughness, like if you have a representation of 1 through 4, the board gets -5/-5, and so on and so forth. I have the Secret Lair version. It's kind of like the unset kind of flavor. I like this one a little bit more than I do this one. I don't have an interest, and maybe that's why the price is starting out so low, is people already have this one, and I think it's just strictly better. I expect the price in that to fall even further. Fibblethip the Lost. Man, Fibblethip's a cute guy. He doesn't see a whole lot of play in much of anything, so I imagine the price of this is going to be dirt cheap, even for this full art version. I play him in my Volo deck because he's a 2-mana draw 2 cards. I'll gladly replace my version with this. There has been a full art version in the past, which looks like this. I don't know. I like them both kind of equally in their respective art styles. They're pretty cool. I don't actually own this version, so I guess I'll pick up whatever's cheaper when the dust settles. You shouldn't buy anything at a pre-order price. You should wait about a month later. Or if you can fight your urge, wait even till the spoiler season of the next set, and that would be Karlov's Manor. So that's when the market will be flooded and be the most dense with copies of stuff. Tomic, Distinguished Advocist. He's just a silver bullet to certain decks, mainly the land decks that are out there, because it prevents your opponents from bringing their lands out of their graveyard to play. So like it shuts down Raminep Excavator, and it shuts down your opponent's Crucible Worlds and like all the other ones that do the same kind of stuff. It also shuts down Strip Mine strategies. So like in one-on-one commander, like when I play on Moto, that's something that is pretty prevalent, people looping Strip Mine. And if I'm in white, I actually include this because it actually has a really good body. 2/3 for 2 mana, so it stuffs out even really obnoxious stuff like Ragavan. It's really obnoxious, and this is an effective body to deal with it. So, in case you didn't know the applications of Tomic, there you have it. You get a copy for 22 cents. I imagine this will be pretty dirt cheap because the demand is equally as low. Just because you introduce a full art version of something doesn't mean it's going to increase the demand of this card any more than it already is. Like, people like me will want to replace their copies with this, and that's about it. Birds of Paradise, one of the best mana dorks in the game. You get one for under $5 if you're in green.
You don't have one? Get one!
You should have had one before this is getting printed because it's so cheap, but now it's going to be even cheaper. You could tap it for anything. There's simply no better dork out there. Maybe Delighted Halfling competes with this, but that has its flaws too, in that it can only tap for colored mana of a legendary creature, versus this, it taps for any color and for any spell. That's why Birds of Paradise is just strictly better. I guess the trade-off with Delighted Halfling is you make your spell uncounterable. It's already gotten a full art treatment. You can get that version from Dominaria Remastered, and that's going for $6. This probably will settle around the same price just because of what happened in Dominaria Remastered. They're both remastered sets. This Birds of Paradise is probably gonna be no different, and I wouldn't pay more money for it. It looks better than this version. Like, this looks like it was hand painted and just like photocopied and slapped on a card. I like hard edges, and I like this a lot more. So I'm going to be replacing my version. Ruvek, we saw this when we were talking about the product breakdown. It's really good in mill strategies and persistent petitioners, or just if you're in Dimir, you just throw this in the 99 and it fits that mill strategy as well. It's pretty cool. Pretty expensive for $30. This is probably an overdue reprint. Most of the Jumpstart cards that are expensive need reprints. I imagine this will settle, like, it'll bring down the prices of everything to a more reasonable price of like maybe $20, but I imagine this full art version that everybody would want instead will be just as much as it currently is, if not more. Be paying a pretty penny for this version. Fun story about these lands. The shock lands are all getting full art treatments. I say that, but these arts are actually really old. They've been on Magic the Gathering Online for years, and this should have probably happened a long time ago. It's kind of weird that it's getting its first iteration in paper today. Let's see, you get a copy for $11, but I just finished collecting all the Unfinity ones. This is why, back to that circle of talking about, they make a full art version, they get everyone hyped and excited, they get everyone to buy it, and I think the Infinity set came out this year, or maybe last year, and already we're getting a better representation here. Like, what about this conveys a watery grave? Like, it's just a planet with water. Like, I don't know, that does not convey the title of the card as well as this does, but you can determine that for yourself. And I like representation of the lore of Ravnica. Me personally, I'm sick of Ravnica. We've been to Ravnica so many damn times. It feels like they're beating a dead horse and they're just trying to squeeze every penny out of this plane as they possibly can. Feels like we go back to Ravnica every year. That's how often we've been there. I don't know off the top of my head how many times Ravnica has came up in Magic's history, but the lore is popular, and that's why they keep doing it. If you don't know, the lore of Ravnica is it's a plane where there are guilds that run everything, kind of like the classic like fantasy trope or isekai, where these guilds have particular representation. So like Dimir is the guild where they're like the rogues and the spies of the plane. Just out of like principle and me doing all that work of, you know, collecting the Infinity ones, I'm not gonna just trade those up for these anytime soon, if at all. Blood Crypts, get a copy for $13 if you want to get a cheaper one. The Rakdos Guild, they're all about entertaining people. They're like the circus of the plane, although their act is incredibly violent. Like, they tear people apart on stage and torture them. So it's a pretty sick circus, if you get that innuendo.
Jokes are funny, and that wasn't funny.
But the art's cool. How it conveys the guild is you could actually see the spectator seating in the art. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense with the title. I don't see a lot of blood, but you could infer that there's about to be a lot of blood. I don't see any crypts around. I imagine there's like a big hole in the center of that well, and that's the crypt. They just throw all the bodies down the hole. Stomping Ground, the Guild of Gruul they're like the wildlings of the plane. They just believe civilization is awful and ruining everything, and so they are just trying to out to destroy everything. They're kind of like the raiders, like the Vikings or the Genghis Khan era of the plane. Get this for 20 bucks, you can get a cheaper one for $8. That's pretty good. A Shockland under 10 bucks, sign me up. The dream for me, Shockland wise, is that they fall under $5 so I could feature them in my deck builds. I build a lot of budget decks for my channel because I want people to be able to afford and like gain entry. Like, there's no sense in me building $1,000 decks, which I do sometimes. Consciously build more budget decks because I think Commander, the player base is largely casual players and new players, and I don't want to scare people off by a price tag, and that's why I build a lot of budget decks. Personally, that's why I do it. And if you watch any of my other stuff on my channel, the decks are still competitive. You can build a lot of strong decks on a budget. You just have to hand select cards and have a lot of game knowledge to do it. And I think the decks that I recommend to people, they do that in spades. They should allow you to compete with your more seasoned friends. It lets you play with them instead of you riding the backseat and you just getting beat to death by them.
Yeah, I know how that feels.
Hall of Fountain, $7 at its cheapest. Get this one for 30. It should go down, but the Infinity one's sitting at 25, so I imagine those prices will equalize at some kind of point. Azorius, they're like the police of the plane. They believe in order. Temple Garden, Selesnya, they are the hippies of the plane. They are one with nature, they live in nature, but they are very tranquil. They have no interest in like wrecking and destroying everything. I feel like the Gruul folks and the Selesnya folks, they get along to a certain extent. They just share nature with each other. That's probably as far as it gets. Like the Selesnya, the enclave, the collective of their people is, they definitely don't believe in violence to solve their problems, while Gruul does. These are the nice hippies that live in trees, as they clearly have built a city in one, and Gruul is the PETA of their world. They throw red paint on things. Sacred Foundry, get a copy for 14 bucks. These guys are the military of the plane. They mobilize entire armies to deal with problems. They get along with Azorius because they're, you know, another faction of law and order on the plane. And it's pretty fitting for the colors of Boros. Like, your whole strategy is to go wide and kill people that way. Steam Vents, the Izzet faction, they're the inventors of the plane. They are just trying to create machinations to make the world a better place. And they're a little chaotic. As you could tell, they're harnessing lightning in this art. Just because they're making inventions to make the world a better place doesn't mean they're necessarily safe. They kind of forego safety in the name of progress.
No sacrifice, no victory.
In that faction all the time. 26 bucks, Infinity's going for 28. Same story as before. Overgrown 2, get a copy as cheap as $9. The full art Infinity cards is a good indication of what things are going to settle at. Despite an injection of more copies, it might go down a little bit, but it's gonna go up, as Shocklands always do. They always go low and then climb back up to 20 bucks or higher. They're a pretty safe investment, but who knows? Long term, like 20 years from now, I imagine we'll get double the amount of Shockland reprints. And we'll be at that point where I could feature them on my channel for $5 or less. And that's exciting to me. I don't care how low these get. These guys are like the undead faction. They celebrate death far more than they do life. Title of the card, the art of the card, it all makes sense for this. Godless Shrine. This is actually my favorite faction, the Orzhov. They are the deck collectors and like the, what do you call them? The sharks of the plane. They basically make contracts with people that can't afford them. And when they die, they steal your soul and they make you pay your contract as a spirit in the afterlife. It's pretty awful. Indentured servitude. There's interest. So you'll be a spirit for a long time. Either you're a spirit paying off debts, or you are some kind of big dumb brute going around making collections. Breeding Pool, I get a copy for as cheap as 16 bucks. The going theme with lands, if they have black or if they have blue in them, they're usually the more expensive. It's because blue and black are the most popular colors, and like the Dimir land is the most expensive one, unsurprisingly. This faction, Simic, is all about progress through evolution. So they experiment on themselves and mutate their bodies to, I guess, advance civilization. This art captures that pretty well. They have like little pods. I imagine living life forms in them that are actively being mutated for the future. Like they have the weird creature types. They're like the shark, octopus, crabs of the plane, or the elf merfolks of the plane. They just splice each other all the time. Okay, now that we're done covering the full art stuff, I'm going to talk about the significant cards that are expensive, that needed a reprint, that aren't necessarily getting a full art treatment. I don't know if Liliana is. It fits that category being a Planeswalker and a Mythic, so maybe down the road they'll release a full art version spoiler, but we'll find out soon enough. Liliana is expensive because every ability and her passive is useful and powerful at the same time. You draw a card whenever a creature dies, doesn't care if it's a token or not, so that's particularly strong. There's only one other card that doesn't care if it's a token or not, and that's Dark Prophecy. The +1 effect makes a blocker to protect herself and feeds into the passive. The -4 makes each player sacks 2 creatures, so it helps keep the board empty and protects your Planeswalker, and makes you sack your own stuff in cantrip. The -9 is a win condition that forces all your opponents to sacrifice each permanent except one of each type. So they'll be left with 1 land, 1 enchantment, 1 creature, etc., etc. That's basically a death sentence in Magic. While it doesn't affect you, you will start and keep your entire board and leave with your opponents with nothing. 10 out of 10 times your opponents will just concede if you ultimate a Liliana. Illusionist Bracers, now you can get a copy for $5. This card has been annoying me because I haven't been able to incorporate it in my games because it's been like $7 for the longest time. I'm pretty happy about this getting a reprint. I would have loved to have included this in my Xavier Sal deck where I proliferate things, because then I get to proliferate twice instead of once. I might have to go back and throw that in there for all of you to enjoy. And I did a gameplay video of that if you want to see it. I think I put that out maybe last week. It has 3 win conditions. You either win by putting poison counters on everybody, you make infinite tokens, or you kill people with that Liliana that I just got done talking about.
She's my mistress.
Fairy Time Raveler, he's particularly good because he locks people out of your turn by making it so they can only cast spells at sorcery speed, and that's his passive. He has some like quality of life stuff, like his +1 enables you to cast sorcery spells at flash speed, which means you could cast them on your opponent's turns until your next turn comes back around. It's -3, lets you bounce an artifact, creature, enchantment to their hand, and you draw a card. Does a little bit of everything. I think the thing that people care about the most is the passive, because it catches people with their pants down. People forget about passives on Planeswalkers all the time because there's so few of them. He was pretty expensive. He's at $8 right now, $9. The price is going to keep going down a little bit more for everyone to afford. Chord Calling, currently sitting at $8, $7. Chord Calling is really powerful because it lets you tutor for a creature and put it directly into play, and you could reduce the mana cost of this spell by tapping your own creatures. So if you have, say, 5 creatures in play, you could tap all 5 and triple green, and you could fetch a creature that is 5 CMC and throw it into play. That's why Chord Calling is really good. In terms of interacting with it, you have to interact with this on the stack. If you let it resolve, it's too late. So if you're dealing with combo decks, which most are playing creature combo decks when they're playing Chord Calling, it's too late and you're probably gonna lose if you let this resolve. So pro advice, if you can, do something before this resolves. Karn the Great Creator, he is at $10 right now. Probably gonna get a little bit lower. Maybe he'll get a full art treatment as well. He is played in prison decks. When you combo this in with something like Mycosynth Lattice, you turn all your opponent's stuff into artifacts. His passive prevents your opponents from activating their artifacts, so they literally lose the use of their lands and their ability to play the game. And that's why Karn gets played a lot. He also sees a lot of play in 60 card formats because he lets you tutor cards out of your sideboard, makes it so you don't have a bad matchup ever. And that's why he's super strong. I think he was banned recently because of that fact. He's banned in multiple formats, and that's also why the price of this card is falling a little bit. But in Commander, I play him to lock people out of the game personally. Dark Confidant, Bob. He is the best upkeep draw effects in the game, and I hope he becomes affordable for everyone to afford. You get a copy as cheap as $10 right now. I can't feature him on the channel because of that reason, but in my decks where I don't give a crap about budget, Dark Confidant is a staple and an auto include if you're playing black. Especially in Commander, because you start off with 40 life, is chump change. I would say 90% of the time you're drawing a land and you lose nothing anyways. So there's no downside to playing Dark Confidant. If you're avoiding playing it because of loss of life, I assure you that's a fear that you just need to let go as a new or a casual player, because everyone else is breaking the game of Commander by using their life as a resource instead of clutching onto it like it's a necklace of pearls. So that's just another tip for you new players out there. Start playing more things like Dark Confidant. And that brings us to the end. The pre-spoiler season stuff is always the longest video, so I'm sorry that this video will probably be long and lengthy. My subsequent videos will be significantly shorter because they're going to be breaking up the borderless cards and the significant reprints up throughout the week and the following week. With that being said, subscribe. You stayed this long. You clearly enjoyed hearing me talk about the cards, the applications, my price evaluations of things, the discussion of the lore. I kind of talked about everything. I'll do a video every day on a daily basis, and I don't want you to miss out on anything. I want you to stay knowledgeable. Everyone have a great night. Take care now. Bye.